Good evening again, everyone. I am Tosin Shobukola, your host, and welcome to our meetup for tonight. Analytics Africa is a melting pot for data professionals or tech professionals, actually, who are interested in the data aspect of data aspects of tech. Now, there are a lot of tech areas, like you very well know, but we are focusing on data analytics and by extension, AI, because of course there's no AI without any data analytics or data. So we are a body of professionals who come together to discuss these issues once a month or once every other month. And we also try to ensure that we are talking about real life issues or real life scenarios. We are not for profit. We are more social benefits. So what we do is our interest is more aligned with helping people learn and become better at what they do, grow in their careers, grow in their businesses, more than doing it for financial profit. So tonight we will be going into a session that talks about low code and no code governance. You know very well, if you've been following the trends in AI, there's a lot of conversations going on MSPs, AI agents, and AI automation. Well, it's not exactly new. That is the trend that we are having in the world today. So in no particular order, we are focusing on those issues for the next few sessions that we have. We'll have AI agent sessions. We'll have low code implementation and deployment sessions. But for now, we are just talking about the governance. How do we ensure that low code is not causing trouble? How do we ensure that because it's not your standard coding practice or it's not your standard coding platform. So all the things you have to do with your standard coding, your ITIL stuff or your DevOps stuff doesn't really happen in the low code environment. So we call them citizen developers, and they are able to get stuff done very fast. So we've moved from rapid application development in the far past into citizen development, which we are currently working on. So to ensure that we don't stifle innovation, but also we don't expose the organization to risks. So tonight, we have a very good friend, Abiola Olomola. Abiola is a risk and compliance expert who has about 20 years of experience in tech and has one of the most enviable career paths that you would ever want to have. She's worked in consulting, she's worked in telecoms, she's worked in almost every industry that you would think about, and she's very, very tenured, and she's an expert. Today, she will be taking us along these lines. She's based out of the Middle East, and she has won multiple awards and is a high performer. She's also she's a director on the Analytics Africa team, and has contributed immensely to our efforts with her experience, her insights, and a lot of things. So tonight, she will be walking us through how governance can be implemented in low code and no code environments. It's an exciting journey, and we're happy to have her here. Good evening, Viola. How are you today? How has your day been?
Hi, Tosin. Good evening. Thank you very much for the intro. I don't think I would have introduced myself as much as that. I'm doing great. Everything is doing great here. Thank you for the intro. Thanks for everyone joining. I appreciate the efforts here.
Good. So without further ado, it's her day. It's not my day. I'll let her go ahead and share her screen with her presentation, and she'll walk us through the exciting field of data analytics and low code, no code. Viola, over to you and all the. So everyone who has coming, I welcome you again. A couple of people joined us, and we are expecting more people to join us over the next few minutes or hours. So we will keep doing that and hope for the best. Thank you, Viola.
Thank you, Tosin, and thank you everyone for joining the call, joining the session. It's a pleasure meeting you all. I know some of my friends are here, so thank you all for joining. So like Tosin mentioned, my name is Abiola Olomola. So this evening or this night or this morning, depending where you're connecting from. We'll be talking about governance and compliance in no-code, low-code environments. So maybe just before we start, I would like us to have like I just want to have a view or a feel of the people that are joining, more of your background and what you know about no-code, low-code. So if you're using your phone to connect, you can just log in, go open your web browser and log into Menti, www.menti.com, and type in this number 79494481. Let me just copy that in the chat. Yeah, so I'll just copy that in the chat. However, if you're using your system, I will show the the QR code that you'll be scanning or you'll be taking the picture of. So I to just log you straight into that. Let me know when you get there. I'll wait. Okay, I'll wait a couple of minutes for us to join. So this is the QR code. So assuming you're using your system and you have another phone or another device, you can scan this QR code. But if you're using the same device and you only have one device, so just log into www.menti.com and you use the code 79494481. So I'll give us 1 more minute for us to do that. Then I will navigate my screen. Thank you. All right, so let me just navigate to the other hand. Yes, so we have this. So let me know what you can see on your hand. Oh, perfect. So I have a couple of people that have started responding. All right, so what's your experience using no-code, low-code platform? 67% said they are an expert, which is very good. Okay. 33% said they know quite, 50% said they are experts. And so thank you very much for that. So which means all the people here understand what no code is. Maybe I'll give us maybe 30 more seconds in case we have people just joining in. If you're just joining in, just open your web browser to menti.com. Just type www.menti.com and use the code 79494481. I'll give us like 10 more seconds, then I'll move to the next question. All right, so this is a very good, very good post view. So I'll move to the next one. So what function are you? So probably, are you a IT developer, an architect? Are you in operations? Are you a GLC person, IT security? Are you an auditor? Or you're into digital transformation? Or you're a project manager, even though probably you're not in IT, but you're a project manager. And others means maybe you're a CIO, you're a CFO, you're in law. Okay, that's good. So IT architect, one IT architect person, two IT architects. Oh, nice. One operation, if someone is in operation, one person in IT security or IT auditor. So this is good. So we have 4 people. How many people do we have on the call? So let me see the number of people we have on the call, except Tosin and Hi. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we need 2 more people to respond, please. So we have 6 people on the call, but 4 people have responded. Okay, so in case you're just joining, you can open a web browser on your phone, on your system, and type menti.com. That's www.menti.com. That's menti.com. And use this code 79494481. So I'll just move on to the next question. So what platform are you used to, or which platform? So this one is just an open-ended question. So you can just start typing the platform that you're used to or you've been using. I know one person or 2 people on this call that I know the platform they're using, but it would be great for us to have an idea of the platform. Oh, great. Power Platform, Bubble. That's a nice response. ServiceNow, yeah. That's good. Who else? So if you haven't used any platform or you're not used to Power Platform, good. Okay, make.com, Zapier, that's very good. Okay, I think we have 4 people that have been responding. So I'll move to the next question. So what would you like to get out of this? So in case you've not responded, I think we had additional 6 people on the call. So this time around, this is your best time to respond. Probably if you're not in IT, just I'm interested in going to IT and I would like to, learn XYZ from this question. So it will be great for us also have an idea of what you're getting out of this session, mainly because I'll be able to tailor my presentation to be able to suit your needs. So knowledge sharing, that's great. One person said knowledge sharing. So we need like 5 more people, at least 5 more people to respond to this. More insights, also good. Excellent. Insights and compliance, great. 3 more people. So in case you're just joining us, so you can open your web browser and go to www.menti.com and use the code 79494481. So if you have one more person that responded, we can now move on to, more insights. Oh, great. All right, maybe I should give 20 more seconds in case we have anybody. Governance, perfect. Okay, so maybe we can, I think that's all, the end of the session. Yeah, thank you very much for your inputs and your responses. So we'll have more feeling on what are the things we need to look at within this session. So thank you very much for answering all those questions. So who am I? Tosin has pretty much said everything about myself. In case you're just joining us and you joined after Tosin had introduced the session, my name is Abilola. I'm into IT, cybersecurity, GLC, IT audits. I have over up to 20 years experience. I've done a couple of IT implementation, IT security policies. In my previous role, I was in charge of setting up the entire IT security department, setting up the security operations center, putting IT policies in place. In my past role, I was in charge of the entire IT SOX compliance team, ensuring that all the IT controls are compliant. So in my previous consulting years, I've done a couple of IT gap assessments, PCI DSS, benchmarking against ISO 27001, and a couple of other consulting things. So I have a master's degree in IT, in information technology, have a bachelor's degree in computer engineering, have a whole lot of certifications. I've won a couple of awards. So that's just like a summary of myself. All right, so why does this topic matter? Because we need to understand, like Tosin had, started off with, he mentioned that now are the days where we have, like what we have in Microsoft, for example, O365, right? You have the Power Platform, that's the Power Automate and Power Apps, right? Where any user that is not in IT, okay, they can actually pick up those tools and develop an app, okay? So why? Because the entire digital transformation is accelerating. Everybody wants to move away from the paper-based, model or the manual-based model and move and automate a couple of things, right? It's actually very accelerating. And the more your processes or your industry or what you do, the more you align with that, the more efficient your processes are going to be. No-code platforms are democratizing the software development, which is entirely very, very true. So we have a couple of these platforms that people mentioned, the likes of ServiceNow, the Power Platform, Zephyr. So all those platforms are actually coming more relevant compared to having the normal traditional software development or the traditional, I wouldn't call it traditional, or the DevOps, in platform. Governance and compliance is often overlooked. So so this is related to almost all IT inventions or any new trends that are coming, okay? The first thing they'll embrace it, make sure that they have it in operations before even thinking about governance or before even thinking about compliance, which is not so good, because which means if you deploy such solution based on the new trends coming on and you don't put security, you don't put governance, you don't put compliance in place, there are a lot of vulnerabilities that might be overlooked, okay, and which might even affect the bottom line or the revenue of the organization at the end of the day. So we need to be having these conversations regularly. There's something called security by design, or governance by design. What that means is that at the point at which you're designing a solution or you're putting operations in place, you need to consider the compliance part of it. You need to consider the security part of it. How does this align with best practice, for example? How does this align with being compliant with the applicable regulation? Okay, for example, we're all talking about AI, for example, and we have a couple of acts like the EU AI Act, right? How does that comply with it? So all those needs to be at the conversation at the design stage, not at the implementation stage. So, which is very, very crucial and important. So in statistics, by 2027, we have 70% of new application which will be built using low-code tools, which is very, very true. So hence, we need to start having this conversation right now. So this is just an overview of what low-code, no-code is. So no-code means that you don't even need to be a programmer, okay? You don't need to be, you don't need to know all those programming language before you can actually build an app, okay? So it means you're not even doing some sort of scripting, some sort of programming before you can build. So it's just more like a drag and drop, platform. So it helps, which is best for non-developers. So people that are not developers, probably a normal person that's not even in IT, maybe in HR or in procurement, can easily do simple drag and drop and automate its processes, right? So rapid development, you can easily build the apps and limited customization. So you are not constrained by any platform capability and all that. So those are the overview of the no code. So examples, I think someone mentioned Bubble, which is very nice. So examples of these, we have Bubble. Okay, so Bubble is a full web app without code. Okay, and it's also a SaaS platform. SaaS means that software as a service. Okay, we have Glide. Glide is their apps from Google Sheets, right? And it helps with developing your business tools. Is also very lightweight. It helps you to build lightweight mobile application. Another example of a no code is Webflow. So it helps with people that wants to build a website. So for example, now before maybe like 10 years ago, 6 years ago, before you build a website, if you want to build a website or have your own website, you have to get programmers. They will give you one high cost. But now it's free. You can just take on something like Webflow and build your website, okay, and host it, okay? So it's very okay. I think we should check this out in case you're considering getting your own website. And a couple of people on LinkedIn, for example, they have it on their profile. Oh, view my website, where you talk about what you do as a professional and all that. So this is very nice, and okay, I think I would recommend that we check that out. So Turntable. So it helps with your native mobile apps, and it also helps in building your simple iOS, Android, application, which is also something you might want to consider in case you want to do that. So low codes, okay. So basically, no codes are geared towards developers, right? Okay, so developers that they don't want to do the normal, they don't want to start from scratch for building applications. So it's still basic drag and drop. However, there is just some simple form of scripting, inside it. So it helps with greater customization, and it's faster than the traditional coding which I talked about, because there are inbuilt, pre-built components that accelerate the development process. It's good for, like I mentioned, for developers and tech service users. Okay, so whenever you need to put some custom scripting when needed, you can do that within the low-code platforms. So what are these enterprise solutions for the no-code platform? So we have ServiceNow, which is very good. I know someone that is on this code that uses that, which is also good. Salesforce, Lightning, Mendix, and APN. We have more than this, okay, but these are the major ones. So these are the these are the ones that are more popular that I know. And obviously, we cannot forget the Microsoft suite. That's the Power Apps platform, the Power Automate platform, and within the Power Apps or Power Automate platform, you can use all the components of the Microsoft suite. Like in case you want, for example, in case you want to develop a simple app that gets responses from people, you can use that using your Microsoft's
Biola, it seems you have been muted, so please unmute yourself. And yes, we can't see your screen again. Sorry.
I am so sorry. I've been talking to myself. All right, so I'm sharing my screen again. Let me know when you can see my screen. Tosin, can you see my screen?
We can see it. Yes, perfect.
And
Please
you can hear my voice.
Yes, please.
Apologies about that. I think when I moved from the Menti down here, that was what happened. All right, so I was talking about I don't know if I should go back. Is it okay for me to go back? I think I pretty much covered what we had. So these are
You can
the
start from enterprise solutions. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. So these are the enterprise solution that has to do with low code environments. Okay, we have the service now, we have the Salesforce Lightning, we have the Mendix, we have the APN. So these are all the solutions for the low code, as in LOW. So in this kind of solution, typically for tech savvy people or people that can do some sort of little scripting within the entire coding or within the entire app. And obviously we cannot forget the Microsoft integration. Okay, so these are all the Power Apps, the Power Automate. I talked earlier about assuming you want to build or do a simple app that collects responses for people. You can use that using your Microsoft form, and from that you can now save those responses into like a web into a, let's say, OneDrive location or a SharePoint location or an Excel sheet. And assuming you want to send an email thanking the users for responding, for example, you can also automate that. So all that you can use that, build your app using that. So these are the enterprise solutions that people use, that people automate, right? Using either the low code or the no code. Okay, one typical example is the employee onboarding app. For the employee onboarding app, we automate IT provisioning. So for example, you are bringing employees on board, they can probably fill your form. From there, you can take them to the provisioning processes. IT provisioning means that probably they need access to some set of application for them to, for them to do their work. So for example, let's say someone is in procurement, is just joining the procurement team. For instance, okay, you can automate the process where at the point of joining, the person's register. After registration, you already know the access that they need, or the application that they need access to. Maybe on your enterprise ERP, for example, they need access to let's say vendor creation is a role on your ERP, or vendor updates, for example. So you already know the roles they need access to. So that process or that workflow goes through that, and they send it to the people that needs to approve that access. Okay, once those access are being approved and the person is granted access to that particular role on that particular application, from there you can now identify that what training does this user need based on his work. Okay, so training, majority organization, they have some set of training, can be IT security training or HSC training. So all those can be done using automating the employee onboarding app, right? From there, you can also do your internal help desk portal, having ticketing, tracking, centralizing your knowledge base, escalation workflows. So this can typically be powered by your service now. Okay, then another one is vendor onboarding portal, where you can streamline your vendor registration, the vendor verification, the approval process. This can typically be done, also can be done by ServiceNow and also OutSystems. So these are typical examples of application that you can automate or you can build using low code, no code, platform. So we have the financial services application, where you have your loan origination system. So from the process of a user requesting for a loan, for you to be able to verify the risk rating of that particular user or that particular customer, and also all the documentation, doing the verification of the document. So these are typical applications, okay, or processes that you can use within the financial services application. So in case you have any question, you can note them down at the end of the call. At the end of the meeting, we'll take your question. So this, for under the healthcare or public sector, we have the normal healthcare application, where you can digitize or automate your patient intake, okay, at the point of, you know, bringing in your patients, you're able to gather all the information you want from the patient, to track that data. So you can also build that using your no-code, low-code, and also within the public sector. Okay, so I'm not rushing, but I think from the initial question, majority of us understand what the no-code, low-code platform means. So this is under the manufacturing and supply chain application, where we all know that for manufacturing environments, it is heavily dependent on inventory. Okay, so once you can build an app that does real-time tracking of your inventory and automating the restocking process, alerts, let's say for example your procurement team that, oh, this inventory, depending on the gauge or on the quota, on the criteria, that okay, once this inventory goes below, let's say 40%, for example, oh, alert the procurement team to, you know, to do a restock. Okay, so that can also be done. You can also digitize your work orders, which is also very, very, you know, good within the manufacturing or the supply chain landscape. Field service inspection, you can build. So remember earlier we talked about building mobile apps, right? So you can have your mobile apps for people, if you have engineers. So because where I was coming from, within the telecom infrastructure, we have a couple of engineers in the field. So you can have apps that are able to help them document any issue that you're having. And also that apps, they don't even need to be online. So those information can be captured offline rather, and probably when they get to where there is internet, okay, because majority of the time, all those locations are remote locations and there might not be internet connection. So that app allows them to be able to capture all their findings or geolocation of a particular substation or whatever it is they're working on. And whenever they get to where there is internet, okay, all those information can now be uploaded to the backend of probably if it's an ERP they are using. Okay, so these are very good example of how you can use no code. Now for a cross-industry application, you have your customer feedback dashboard in case you want to get information from a customer. So for example, by the end of this training, we'll be sending customer feedback questionnaire to people. And also you can also automate your compliance checklist. Obviously I'm coming from compliance, so it's something that would be good to do. Your sales quota generation, you can also do that using a low code, no code platform. Then audit data collection in case you know, in the process of audits, which people don't really like attending to auditors, right? So you can also get all your maybe audit evidences, right? You're auditing a particular area. I think one person or two people we have on this call is in IT security or IT GRS or IT audit. So you can use this no-code, low-code platform to be able to gather all your audit evidences. And also if you need additional information, you can also request for that. So this is just an overview of, you know, across all the platform or all the industry where you can automate processes using your no-code, low-code platform. Now, let's talk about something very important. Now, typically, when you have a user with an IT need, right? Typically, the person will go to IT because you're a user that needs an IT need and you should go to IT, right? Now, from there, the user from IT, based on IT managed budgets, they look at the need, for example, and they see, do we have an existing application in-house that will suit your needs? So for example, probably a user said, oh, I usually get PDF from my regulators, for example, and I want all those PDF to be converted to, let's say, an Excel, right? And from there, I want to generate a workflow from some set of people to approve it. From there, then once that is approved, then I will now generate all the list of, you know, the list of the document that the regulator needs. That's just an example, right? So IT typically, okay, they'll receive that need and they'll say, oh, do we have any ERP or do we have any application in-house that can, you know, that we can use to suit the user's need, right? So it's more like a demand, like it's a demand that is coming from someone within the business, right? So they look at their budget. So even if they don't have, they'll now say, oh, or if they have, so for example, let's say our ERP can do that, but probably we need some efforts from the vendor to be able to implement such solution. They will now look at the budget. Oh, we have a particular budget for that. Okay, so call the vendor or someone in-house can do it, and let's, you know, look at how many man-hours you can use to implement that, and you give feedback to the user. And then at the end of the day, it means that you have a well-functional IT, okay? Now, look at the scenario where a user with an IT needs. So Now, because probably the IT people, so in the first instance, the user probably initially approached IT and say, oh, I need XYZ. So I need XYZ implemented, or I need this particular solution. And it took a while. Is it that because of workforce, the IT are not well staffed, or there's no budget? A couple of reasons can happen, right? Or maybe there's an oversight, right? Or there's no proper process in place. So maybe instead of having a process where user goes to raise their demand, or user goes to make their request, maybe they approach a director, a senior manager, a manager, say, oh, I need XYZ, and that person didn't pass it to the right channel, or there was no formal channel of raising the request. So a couple of things might slip. So the user will be very, very disgruntled and say, I've told IT I need XYZ for the past 6 months. Nobody had answered. I have money in my budget, so let me just go and source, for my solution myself, and do what I need to do, because it's injuring my processes, or I need to move away from this manual process. And probably the user in that business, maybe someone in procurement or HR, they have an SLA, or they have it in their KPI to say, oh, so process will be automated by the end of the year, or by the end of financial year, and IT is not answering them. So, and they have their budgets, they will just go ahead. So from there, what that means is that they are bypassing IT in this case, okay? And so for example, if this user have access to this Power Platform, for example, and the guy can see that, oh, there's Power Apps, I have access to Power Apps, I have access to Power Automate, because by default, Microsoft gives user access to this thing to be able to build this app. I have access to it. Why am I even waiting for IT? Oh, I can see that whenever employees leave the organization, everybody, I have to be someone in HR to be sending manual email to IT. So why do I need to do that? I can easily build an app to be able to do that. Okay, so the guy just bypasses IT for different reasons, right? So in that case, what happens? There will be a shadow IT. So that's typically what's like a overall definition of what shadow IT means, because people outside IT are building application, okay, outside IT. And what that means is that because majority of those people they know little or zero knowledge about IT, which means the governance, the compliance bit of it will not be there, because all they are interested in, I want to make my process efficient. I don't need to wait for IT to do anything. So things like access control, a couple of things I'll be discussing, within the course of this session, they are not interested in putting that in place. Even IT, people that are in IT as a governance person, they don't even want to put governance controls in place. All I want to make my process efficient. So please don't come and be telling me to be benchmarking anything or to put additional controls. So that's people in IT. Talk less of people that are not in IT, okay? So that's just like a simple definition of shadow IT. So that gives us to the common governance risk in low code, no code. So which means that these users, because they have access to this app, to be able to build this app, they will definitely not put controls or governance, measures in place. So non-compliance with industry standard, obviously, what's their own with ISO 27001, or what's their business with GDPR, okay? So they will not want to put all those best practices in place, and all those industry standard in place. And unvalidated integration, very important. So you can imagine the person in my formal illustration, this person didn't go through IT, and we have an app already that is already doing that solution, that can implement that solution. So two things: you're wasting money because you have that budget, and remember that it's not your money, it's the organization's money. So we have this already in-house, so why not let us use the existing process, right? So which means integration will not be considered, because if you are capturing, let's say it's an employee information, for example, and you are capturing that information and you are storing it somewhere else, what means that information cannot be integrated or cannot be used by any other thing else, because they are doing it outside of IT. So unvalidated integrations, those are the risk. Inconsistent security policies is also a very, very risk that can crystallize. Untracked data flow. So you have all this chunk of data flying all over the place, right? And you don't want that as an IT person, or you don't want that as a security person, okay? Then obviously it's shadow IT, okay? So these are all the risks that you can have within the no-code, low-code platform, okay? Once that is in place and you don't put that in place, so visual idea, we have these icebergs that shows the risk within the surface. So what are the key compliance risks? Number one is security and compliance. Now, in a typical software development life cycle or DevOps environment, in this case, probably they call it DevSecOps, right? Before you can deploy, so I think earlier I mentioned something about security by design or compliance by design. What that means is that at the point of designing a solution, okay, you need to start considering the security measures that you need to put in place. So what that means is that if we have apps that are accessible by non-IT people or even IT people, so far you don't have the governance structure in place, or so far you don't have like a policy in place, they will not consider the applicable security that you need to put in place. So you just go ahead, the user does go ahead to implement an app or deploy an app without probably looking at also, for example, if you are getting customer information, for example, and their personal information, you will not consider GDPR, because GDPR requires that any sensitive information should be either encrypted or anonymized, okay? So what that means is that all those requirements will not be put in place, okay? Okay, I talked about data residency and privacy requirements. So all those can be actually be violated, especially for it can be okay for a startup that have, let's say, 20 employees, for example, right? But it's not for, you cannot forgive that practice for an entity or an organization that probably is listed in the stock exchange, okay, that has to have SOX requirements, or organization that is a government organization, for example, okay. So or an organization that is within the health sector that has to comply with HIPAA, okay. So all those things need to be put into consideration. Number two is data silos and fragmentation. I've talked about that. When you have different data in different people in their different units, building apps because they have access to, let's say, Power Apps or Power Automate, building those apps, they won't want to consider probably the apps or those information are just being saved in one Excel sheet somewhere, okay. And for example, if let's say the person that built that app left the organization, probably the person, let's say in procurement, for example, or let's say the person in sales left the organization, there's no way all those typical general IT controls, like how often you should back up with data, how often you should have this data within a control environment, who should have access to this data, all those considerations will not be put in place. So, and will lead to data silos and fragmentation, cost overrun. I talked about it, because you have, as a user department, because you think you have your budget, you have your money, you can easily get an app or build an app for yourself, or even buy an app, okay. So which means, so probably those tools or those platforms, you need to be renewing them, so you can't even take track of it. I have an experience when this was even in IT, my very, 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 very past life, where the user was the one in charge of that particular app, okay, and that app is being monitored by someone within the business. Now that user left, okay, and obviously the app was being managed by someone else, and the person didn't even know that he's supposed to renew the subscription is supposed to be renewed on an annual basis. And unfortunately, that app is being used by critical function within the business. Now, I think the app was down for, like, let's say 2 or 3 days, which was not good, okay, because based on the RPO and the RTO, the app should be down, let's say, for 4 hours, okay. So which is also not good. So which means there's a couple of cost overrun, and which might affect the business. Operational instability, when you don't have people supporting unsupported or poorly configured system, it can cause a couple of downtime and integration challenges, because you have your data, all these data are not being, let's say, you don't have it in, let's say, something called data in your data lake, for example, or in your data warehouse. So there are a couple of operational issues that can that can be in place. Now let's look at this in intersection with cybersecurity controls, because obviously I talked about having security by design. When you're designing your application, you should have security, compliance, governance by design. At the design stage is when you should consider. So design, okay, let me probably give for the luxury of people that probably don't are not into the SDLC or developer. So typically your traditional SDLC, the first stage is your design. When you are designing an application, the first stage probably is your planning stage. The next stage is your design. So design typically means that all the things that you need to put in place, consider what does the application requires, getting there's something called business requirement documents, all the features that should be within the app. Then from there, from design, you now go to development. That at the development stage is when you start building the code and all that. From development, probably you go to your UAT, user acceptance testing. From once UAT has been completed and successfully done, you can probably move to production. So this is like your typical traditional, software development life cycle. So how does this, because obviously what I just talked about is what they do, like what a typical developer do, right? Now that we are now moving away from that into you just picking and dropping dashboard, you just picking and dropping things to build app, we need to look at the security issues around it. Now, Tosin, at the beginning of the session, Tosin talked about citizen development, which is right. So these users that actually develop this app, okay, they are called citizen developers, okay. So one of the risks is that this citizen development is often built out without formal SDLC, which I just talked about. Increasing injection, increasing authentication, increasing data leakage risk, okay. So all this data that these people are the users, are getting based on the app or probably responses they have gotten, probably that they saved it in an Excel sheet that everybody in the organization can have access to. There's no proper access control, and it can be an issue for data leakage, right? Now, the cybersecurity tie-in, there has to be an embedded security gate within. So you need to have like a template or a secure component. You need to have built-in OAuth control into the app platform so that the apps cannot just be published until they pass vulnerability checks. The long and short of this entire security for cybersecurity tie-in is that whatever app that is available, whatever low-code, no-code app that is available. I've worked very well with Microsoft Suite, that's O365, okay? You need to put, there's something called COE, okay? So COE, Center of Excellence. What that does is that there are a couple of security measures or controls the administrator needs to put in place. So the fact that you have access to Power Platform or Power Apps, there are still some check that it can be put in place. So even though you build an app, before you can even publish the app, publishing the app means that once you build it and you need to share it with people that need to use that app, okay, it has to go through a particular vulnerability check or security check. So that can be done at the back end by the administrator. So the fact that everybody have access to Power Apps doesn't mean that they can just build an app and share with everybody and everybody start using it. No. So the administrator in this case needs to put enough security process in place. So let's look at role-based access and segregation of duty. The governance bit of it is that you need to clearly define who can create, who can test, who can promote, who can no-code application. So maybe now I can talk about this. In my former past organization, we have a couple of users because they have access to local Power Platform. That's the Power Automate, Power Apps platform. They can just go and create an app, share with everybody. Okay, and obviously as part of SDLC, I talked about user acceptance testing. Somebody needs to test that code. So putting governance in place, you need to be clear that, if someone needs to develop an app within a no-code platform, these are the set of people that can do that, okay? And that control needs to be put in place within your COE backend by the administrator. And these are the people that can test, and in this particular environment, okay? And these are the people that can promote. For example, probably the people that create it, there's a term called segregation of environments, okay? It's like a control that where the person that creates or develop a code shouldn't be the person that will promote the code, okay? So once you have that clear policy in place to define all those people that can create, that can test, and that can promote, it will make your life easy even as a developer and also from a GRC perspective or from IT security perspective. So from the cyber security side, you enforce your least privilege through your identity access management integration. Ensure no single user can do both provisioning of data sources and expose them publicly, which is very, very important. So make sure that you have a robust access. So probably, for example, you might say people in tier one of this unit will be the one that can create. Okay, now if they go through IT and IT looks at it and everything is fine, so these are the people that can test. And it's another set of people. Now maybe someone in IT that will now be the one to promote it. Depending, it varies from organization to organization. But what should stand out is putting enough governance structure in place in this entire segregation of duties. Platform configuration and hardening. So compliance there is that document configuration standards. So things like login. Login is very important. Okay, especially if you are coming from a well-matured environment where you need to be complying with a couple of things. You need to comply with GDPR, you need to comply with IPA, you need to comply with SOX, you need to comply with a couple of regulations, right? You need to log everything you're doing. So you can see a typical someone from, let's say, sales is building an app. What's his own with login? So login simply means that in case any change is made, there has to be a log. In case any transaction is done, there has to be a log for that. The guy might not want to enable logging. What's my own? My own is that I want to make my process efficient, right? So we have issue with logging, with encrypting. So if you are getting sensitive information and encryption based on GDPR or IPA, you need to probably encrypt the sensitive information, data at rest. So probably when you're saving your data in your database, you need to encrypt the data, or data in motion, your TLS, you need to encrypt that data. So all those requirements need to be in place, should be part of the change management process. The tie-in for cybersecurity is requiring TLS. Okay, I talked about TLS only at endpoints. Okay, enable the platform level web access firewall or the IPS feature, and mandate data at rest encryption in the underlying platform as a service or software as a service. So all those are very, very important in adding your platform. Now let's look at monitoring and risk management. You need to ensure that there's enough. So these are the governance structures or cybersecurity structure you need to put in place. Ensure that you have governance metrics for the inventory, your change history. So anything that happened, there has to be a history, because you want to go back to say, oh, what happened? So I had a case where in my past, like we're automating, we're doing something called robotic process automation. So in case you want to know any changes that have happened, there has to be an history for it, which typically happens in your normal application or your normal ERP. So you should also have that in your no-code local platform. Very, very important. So approval timestamp is very, very, very important. So especially if you have auditors, like external auditors or internal auditors auditing the process, you want to know if, for example, in your provisioning system, like when you're granting access to a user and you want to, and your process says, oh, before the user needs access to a role in a particular app two people need to approve, for example. Now, once approval has been done, then you can now grant access to the person. Now, when auditors come, we've had that cases all over the place that we have situation where access was granted to the user without approval. So this is very important. So you need to be able to evidences that, oh, X, A, and B actually approved this based on the process that we have, or based on the process we've documented, and we can show that to the auditor. So all those logging, if you don't have logging or monitoring in place, you won't be able to show the auditor anything. You don't say, oh, in your process, you said A and B needs to approve. So I need to see that they actually approved before you granted access to the person on your application. And if you don't have that enabled in place, then it's an issue for the auditor. They might fail the control. Cybersecurity tie-in, we have the forward low-code application. So all those logs, you can, import them or do an integration into your SIM or your extended application, right? So alert on autonomous events. Okay, anything, maybe there is an unusual API call you want to also, or data export, you want to also feed that into your SIM. So SIM is security incidents and event monitoring. Third-party vendor risk management. You can treat your no-code vendors as critical third party. Very important. We discovered that there are a couple of third-party risk, okay? A couple of third-party users that you will grant access to the application or your platform, that whenever they leave, you don't know. So all those things need to be in place. You want to also do your SOC 2 and ISO 27001 reviews, okay? So all those are related to third parties. So your cybersecurity tie-in there is ensure SLA is in place, include incident response commitment, do a regular penetration testing, okay? Also secure your development lifecycle evidence from the vendors, which is very, very important. Your data protection and privacy controls. You classify your data sources that is being used in the local platform. So I talked about your personal identifiable information, right? So those are sensitive information, like maybe your customer's credit card, for example, number, for example, or your customers information, sensitive information, okay, for example, anything that can easily identify the user or a customer, I'll call usually PII. The non-PII maybe the customer's height, for example, all those things that cannot easily identify a customer. Okay, so you want to protect all those data sources, and all those can be defined in the policy, in the relevant policy. You can have a policy for citizen development, or your policy for a low-code, app development, depending on how you want to call the policy. But there has to be like a governance structure in place, or a governance framework in place that classify all those. So your cybersecurity tie-in is when you're implementing field level masking, you put DLP rules in place. DLP is data leakage protection policy, rather. So the couple of app or the couple of application that does DLP. So for example, for some organization, you cannot just use flash drive. All flash drives or USB exit points are actually blocked. So those are the way of tracking to make sure that your data doesn't leak, right? Platform enforce consent banners for GDPR. So for example, before you can have access, a couple of organizations, they do it. If you are, whenever you're logging into the domain, there's like a banner that comes up to say, oh, this is a property of XYZ company, blah, blah, blah is needed. So more like a general banner that tells you that once you are consented to this, then in case anything happens, you're liable. So policy enforcement and change management, okay? So what that does is that you need to put in incident response in place, update your incident response plan. There's something called incident response playbook. So playbook simply means that in case there's an issue, let's say, for example, there's a what's the name of this thing? There's an incident that has to do with ransomware, for example. Someone has encrypted your entire data, and they are requesting for you to pay before they can release your data, or before they can remove that. Okay, so all those ones, what do you do in your playbooks? Who do you report to? How do you escalate it? What do you do? Do you usually have a backup in place, and probably the data or the server they had access to, you can easily take it, quarantine it out of the network, and restore your data that you backed up, things like that. So those are so playbook, incident response playbook is like step-by-step instruction on what to do whenever anything happens. It can be a ransomware, it can be a malware attack, it can be a distributed denial of service attack. Depending on the attack or the vulnerability you've identified within your platform, you need to have incident response playbook for that. So you need to also have that for your no-code local platform, right? So you shouldn't just have that for your enterprise application. So you need to identify your no-code local platform and build in your incident response plans for it, and do a rollback. So I talked about data backup, for example. So the data you are getting from your no-code platform, if you are regularly being backed up and there's an issue, you can easily take that or quarantine that out of your network and do a restoration, for example. So things like doing test restoration. So what I'm saying in essence is that typically all the processes or all the general IT controls you have for your typical main application should also be reflected for your no-code, low-code apps. So the cybersecurity tie-in and ensuring that you have sufficient data, audit data, who change words, so I can capture all those information in case you want to. So I talked about quarantining it. So if you quarantine that of the network, you want to investigate that what happened. Did anybody leave their password somewhere and someone else use it using a particular IP address from a particular source IP, for example? So all those investigations, you might want to do it. And if you don't have enough information on your no-code, low-code, there's no way you're able to get to the bottom of what happened in case there's an incident. So automated compliance, so you can put in, you can codify your policies. You can make sure that any external HTTP call that doesn't have an approval is blocked. So anybody that wants to have access to your app, let's say, for example, typically your users, let's say, for example, should be in Lagos, for example, and based on your rule set, no user should be able to use this app, let's say, from Dubai. So you can put all those policies in place that any user that wants to connect through, probably through a VPN from Dubai or through a particular source IP that doesn't relate to the source IP address of Lagos users, for example, you can drop the connection, just drop it, finish. So cybersecurity tagging, use policy as code engines, integrate it into your local platform. Also very important. You can secure your life cycle. I think I talked about change management. Even without handwritten the code, you can enforce versioning, peer-to-peer review, excuse me, approval workflow. I said earlier, your COU has to be managed for your Power Platform, for example, Power Automate, Power Apps. Your COU can be managed by your administrator outside, and you can check, make sure they put enough policies in place, before the users can do that. And very good platforms like ServiceNow. ServiceNow has a GRC module, right? And you know that ServiceNow is a platform for local. So all those information can be tracked into your GRC module of your ServiceNow that can use to, track all those or do all those risk assessments or do a couple of control checklists. So very important. You can train, and so remember the reason why the citizen developers came on board, because probably IT are not staffed enough. Okay, now if you want to allow some specific people not within IT to be able to develop this code, you need to train them within these your governance processes. You need to tell them that XYZ monitoring needs to be in place, encryption needs to be, all these things needs to be in place, for example. So training is very, very important for that. You need to tell them about the OWASP top 10 vulnerabilities. Very, very important. API security, if there has to be any integration that needs to be done, because the beauty of local is that you can be building a app within your Power Platform, for example, and you need to integrate with another third-party app. There are a couple of custom integration that is required within that. You need to make sure that you don't expose your APIs, for example, because all those, so far you had the right license or the right what's the word now? Yeah, license in place. You can integrate with other solutions, for example, or in my past life, I was using Power Platform. I was able to integrate, let's say, Cognito Forms, for example, or any other app that is outside Microsoft Suite. Okay, now all those integration or all those connection, yeah, they call it connection. All those connections, you need to make sure that the API endpoint is well secured. Vulnerability management and patch assurance. So ensure that you have an inventory of all your platforms. So there's this saying that what you don't know, you cannot protect. So if you don't have an inventory of everything that's going on within your organization, there's no way you're able to actually protect. So full visibility is very, very important, so that you can regularly scan all these apps, and if there's any patches or any upgrade that needs to be done, you can track it and do your proper upgrading. So let's move on. Okay, I talked about all the compliance consideration in my previous slides. Ensure you comply with the relevant data privacy. Ensure that you vet and monitor third-party integration. Very important. There's something called least privilege. Ensure that people that need access to the role, you need to give them access, the little access. So there's something also called zero trust. You don't trust anybody by default, right? So audit trail is very important. Who is doing what? When is the person doing it? Do you have an independent function that reviews what is being done? Also needs to be also considered. And retention policies. So these are typical automation techniques. Pre-built compliance templates, you can have it in place. Auto tagging of sensitive information data also in place. Built-in connection with login. Automating all your data or all your logs within your security incidents and event monitoring tools. Examples are Rapid7, Splunk, and the likes. So integration with GRC tools also. So all these things, you need to make sure you have all these cybersecurity or compliance controls in place. Now let's look at low-code governance case studies. Okay. Okay, I think before we get here, so let me give you a typical scenario, for example. So I've had it in my past career life where, because obviously I said earlier that when all these low-code platform keeps coming up, people just start building app. In fact, they have access to the environment, just log in, build app, share with their friends, log in. So if you had cases where that is what you currently have in your environment and there's nothing called security by design or compliance by design, you can actually still do something about it. So In this case, you can take inventory of all the apps that have been built within your environment, okay? Now, because you have access to the COE, okay? So Center of Excellence, that's why I call it for Microsoft platform, right? You can now start building controls in place within your Center of Excellence, and you can do something called apps cleanup. You can want to clean your environment up to say, okay, now that we actually built this app is fine. You want to see within, let's say 100 apps have been built within the environment without your notice as the IT person, someone in HR, legal, sales, procurement, they built app and they've shared with people. So identify this number of apps, right? Now, once you've identified this out, within 100 apps, how many are not being used? How many are being used? Because someone can be playing with it. Oh, they said we can actually build a app, or they just build app. That's it. They didn't use the app. So identify the apps that are being used and the ones that are not being used. Now, the ones that are being used, okay, all these 100 apps, you can reach out to the people that developed them or that, created these apps to say, are these ones being used? Obviously, they'll respond. Now, if you identify the ones that are not being used, you can easily decommission those apps. Then you can free up a couple of licenses within your platform, which is very good. Now, the ones that are being used, remember that you want to put governance structure in place, or you want to put control, all those controls that I talked about, audit logging, encryption, integration with your SIM tools, or you want to start doing that now. That the one that are being used, you can put a process in place. And I also talked about segregation of environment. So you want to make sure that when you are building your app, the app in your development environment, someone else have access to it, then you move it to your test environment, another set of people have access to it, then you move it to your production environment. So you want to do that so you can get this app that are being used. Let's say there are 50, for example. Look at what they're being used for. Okay, now start creating environments that you can segment those apps into. Okay, through your COE, your Center of Excellence, you can now start enforcing policies. You can say, based on what have been agreed with the CIO, or what have been agreed, within the organization, these users should only have access to the apps in the development environments. Okay, it's only, let's say, for example, IT that should have access to the UAT and production environments, for example, depending on what is obtainable within the organization. So from there, you can now start making sure you put policies and governance in place. However, you need to have like a policy, like maybe a local platform policy or framework in place first that has been signed by your CIO, that has been signed by management. Okay, now you can now use that policy to enforce all these automated policies, all these readiness flow workflows, everything that I talked about, like encryption, like monitoring, like logging, all those, like identity, access management. Then you can now start implementing that. So those are the ways that if something had gone wrong in the first instance, you can actually correct them. Okay, so this is an example of organizations that have put governance in place. So we have a global retailer that had 5,000 plus users, and they use Power Automate and Power Ops. Now, the governance action they put in place is to establish environment strategy. Okay, like I mentioned earlier, how do you want to segment your environment? They also introduced DLP policies, that's data leakage protection, policies to say these are the set of people that should have access to this data, or data should not be leaked out through XYZ way. Then they now use Center of Excellence starter kits to monitor the app. So, for example, in your COE, the administrator can see the people that are raising or that wants to raise a request. So, in your COE, the administrator can say, "Oh, I don't want anybody to just go and raise a request to go and create an app." Sorry. Now, if someone wants to create an app or Power Apps, it can redirect the person. You send a banner to the person. Oh, contact your demand unit, or contact your operations unit, or contact your director if you want to create the apps. Things like that. All those enforcements can be enforced through your COE. So the result of this organization, or this Power case, they were able to reduce unauthorized apps by 40% in 3 months, which is very important. Remember, I told you earlier, we had people just creating apps, anyhow, creating apps. So when they put all this governance action in place, unauthorized apps were reduced by 40% in 3 months. Another example is a platform called, or an organization called Global Media and Entertainment Company. Where they use Power Platform. So they were able to establish Power Platform Center of Excellence. They customized their governance framework, covering security policies and data loss prevention, and making sure that they have operational life cycle in place. So the impacted result for this organization, about 30 30,000 active assets, for risk and compliance are being remediated. And they've streamlined their governance processes, allowing just 1,000, 10,000 plus citizen developers to innovate safely. So, which is very important, depending on your number of your workforce, okay? So for this organization, having 10,000 citizen developers, probably they had about 1 million users, right? So, which is also good for them. So for this organization, Entity Data UK, they also put governance processes in place, and their impacted results is they had over 270% faster compliance checks and three more accurate screening compared to the manual processes, okay, which is very, very good for them. And they rolled out the version 2 of the app within a year and extended the service beyond their insurance to banking and other sectors. So putting enough governance in place will help you achieve your goal as an organization. For this particular company, they have about 9 mission critical apps. It took them 18 months to deliver, which is very good for them. And they were able to save about 1,000 plus work hours. And obviously, at the end of the day, they achieved 75% processing time reduction, which is good. So the governance action they implemented was automating their policy management, ensuring that they have issue scoring, they have audit workflow in place, real-time dashboard monitoring, AI-assisted remediation suggestions. So all these governance they put in place is able to achieve the results. So we can go on and on and on and on. I can share this this slide with you. So let's talk about the key governance benefits across platforms. So we cannot overemphasizing enhanced compliance. You don't want people to just be spinning up application that at the end of the day will bring risk, or make your organization not compliant to policies or regulations. So 100% enhanced compliance will be in place. You're able to save a couple of processes. Obviously, the essence of having the no-code, low-code platform is able to automate processes. And when you're automating manual processes at the same time, you're increasing efficiency and you're also saving time, in executing your processes. There has to be an improved accuracy. You're reducing human error. So in cases like when you allow users to just build an app and you don't have a policy in place to be able to scan all those apps through your so obviously your normal SDLC or DevOps environment, there are tools that you use in scanning for vulnerabilities within this app. So if it doesn't go through that, you can have an issue with that. You can empower innovation. So like I mentioned earlier, identify the people that maybe because of the low workforce within IT, identify people that can actually build this app, probably in different segments within your business. Maybe only one person in HR, for example, or one person in procurement, for example. You're empowering them if you are giving them enough training on how to implement security by design for that. Okay, so I think we are at the end of our session. Thank you very, very, very much. So let me see the number of users we have now. Sorry about that. So we have very good number of users. Oh, interesting. Thank you for joining. Now, please, if you can scan this QR code, in case, I hope I'm still sharing my screen. Tosin, is my screen still visible?
Yes, very visible.
Thank you. So if you can please scan this QR code, assuming you are using a separate device from the device you're working with, okay, you can please scan this QR code. If you are just using one device, you can log into www.menti.com, then use this code to log in 4369765. Or I will just drop this URL in the chat so that we can connect. Okay. So I've dropped it. So you can click on this link, okay, or scan this QR code. So I'll give us 10 seconds to do that. So either scan this code, I assume you are using a separate device, so like if you have two devices, you can use your second device to scan this QR code. Or if you're using one device, you can click on the link I shared on the chat box, or open a web browser, just do www.menti.com and type in this code 4369765. 7645. 43697645, or click on the link I added on below. Okay, so let's go back to our presentation. So this is just, let me, by show of hand, just let me know once you're there. All right, so I'm presenting. Okay, everybody knows what to do. Wow, nice, interesting. I'm very, very glad. So nobody needs a one-on-one mentorship. Nobody's confused. Wow, that's very good feedback. Thank you. Maybe I'll wait for 5 seconds before I move to the next one. 1, 2, 3. Oh, somebody needs, oh, maybe I should change this to, okay, 25% said they need one-on-one mentorship. Okay, 4 and 5. Okay, let's move to the next one. Any questions? So right now we can start we can start responding to questions. So probably this time I will give us 1 minute to be able to type our questions and send. So if you have any question, you can just type in and send it. No question. Nobody's, it means everybody's okay. How do you manage? This is very good. Okay. How do we manage non-human identities using low-code development? So any other question? Okay, so we're still waiting. I'll give us 1 more minute to be able to ask this question. Um, 30 more seconds. Okay, number 2, how do you, okay, the number 2 is, okay, I think it's the same question. The person typed in the same question. Okay, so I'm still waiting. Please let me know when you can see my screen. Tosin, can you see my screen?
No, we cannot.
Okay. All right. Let me still check the number of. How do we stay relevant with new technologies every day? That's the second question. Okay. We're still waiting.
There is a question
how do we prevent
in the chat window also. So
okay, you can, okay, there are chats. We have chats. For someone who is interested in learning GRC, how can I get hands-on experience while learning, considering the fact that internship through a nice idea might be a bit difficult to come by? All right, that's a very great question. So let's give 1 more time to be able to answer the question. Well, sorry, 1 more minute. The next question is, how do we prevent data exfiltration? All right, I think that's the question. So, okay, I can start responding to the questions now. Now, how do we manage non-human identities using low-code development? So, one basic way that we can manage that is through two-factor authentication, right? So we want to make sure that you have two-factor authentication enabled. So the user will supply their user ID and password, and they already have an app like a Google Authenticator, any other authenticator app on their phone or on their system. They can provide like sequence of code to be able to have access to it before developing an app. Once you have two-factor authentication enabled, you're able to remove the non-human elements of it. Okay. You can also have something called social login. So for example, you want to make sure that is a human that is logging in. So probably the person can log in through their using their Google account, for example. Or you can do something called phone or email verification. That is also another aspect of multi-factor authentication. Okay, so or you can, so nowadays when you are going to, when you want to have access to an app, they will say, how do I know you're not a robot? Then they give you some sequence of images to be able to identify. Okay, so some things called, you can integrate your Power App platform with reCAPTCHA. Okay, once you integrate your Power Apps with something called your reCAPTCHA, you can be able to identify if that user is non-human, or if something is a robot, for example. Okay, so those are ways that at which you can, identify that or eliminate all the non-users away from that. There's also something called OAuth authentication or open ID, but it's more technical. So all those ones you can implement it within your low code environment. Let me know if I was able to answer your question. You can do a thumbs up if that question have been answered, or you want me to, to speak more to that. So, but those are typically the ways at which you can use to, eliminate all the non-users' identity. How do we stay relevant with the new technologies every day? It's simple. So you can join organization, you can join platforms. So probably if you're a member of ISACA sends a couple of articles, a couple of relevant information that you can use to stay relevant within your new technologies. IEEE is also a very good example. ISC Square or ISC2 is that's the body that have, I think, CISSP certification. So you can join those bodies. So I will send you the details of this in the chat box. Okay. How do we prevent data exfiltration? So that's a very, very good question. So I talked earlier about enforcing least privilege, or something called role-based access control. So you can only give users access to necessary data. So it's not everybody. Okay, I talked earlier about zero trust. So people that actually need access to a data, those are the people that you should grant access to the data. Also, you should monitor. I also talked earlier about having login in place, right? So even the people that gave access to this platform or data, you need to monitor what they are doing. Okay, you need to make sure that they can't just copy the data, and probably if you've disabled USB, and they can just upload the data to their one box, for example, or their Google Drive, for example. So putting enough DLP, data leakage policies in place will help you to be able to identify that. Then also you can segment your data, for example. So for if a particular set of data is just meant for the procurement team, you just, not even everybody in the procurement team that should have access to it. Some specific people that are working on that particular data, they should have access to it, as opposed to having your entire data and not segmenting it. You can also put that in place. So you can also expire access. So if you have just temporary user like your vendor that needs access, it has to be, in my past life, if vendor needs access, you can't just grant permanent access to vendors, right? So it has to be a temporary access. Do they need this for 1 month, or do they need it for 6 months, or depending on their contract, for example? But however, be aware that there's some vendor that you grant access, 1 year access, as in they need to work on your processes for like 3 years. You can't say no because their contract says 3 years. You grant them 3 years access. No, you can grant them one month, and if they still need access to the application or the data, the return within that unit can raise the request for them. Then it has to be for a temporary basis also. Then obviously you need to encrypt your data. I talked about if they are sensitive data and you encrypt them, very, very important. So once those data are encrypted and people that need real access and has to go through appropriate approval, then they can have access to the data. So for your API integration, I talked about it earlier, you need to do something called token-based authentication, okay, for your API gateway. And you can also whitelist some domain. I'm sure our cybersecurity people on this call, there are a couple of domains, blacklisted domains that are known worldwide. And you can only know them if you have access to know, because all these IPs are being known every day. Every day there are a lot of worldwide blacklisted IP. If you need to be on top of a game to know those IP, then you can probably go to your firewall or your web application firewall, either your traditional network firewall or your web application firewall, to be able to, block all those IP, from entering your environment. Okay, so those are ways that you can. So I talked about monitoring, someone an independent unit, monitoring all these access, integrating it into your security, identity, and event management tools. Those ways you can, because all those same tools nowadays, they're actually AI enabled. They can identify any anomaly access and they can block it right there and then. Okay, obviously you need to also the word any export or any download, you can prevent it depending on the business need for that particular data or application. So those are the ways you can do that. Um, you can prevent that. Now talk someone. Oh, thank you. Someone talked about next generation. Oh, Tosin said next generation SIM. Yeah, you can also use that. For someone interested in learning GLC, how can I get hands-on experience while learning? Yeah, I think I talk about one. So this person, this is Adebuela. Okay, so we'll reach out to you. You're a student, we'll reach out to you. We can arrange some sort of one-on-one mentoring with you, and depending on the area you're interested in, at least it's good for your internship. At least you have hands-on gain experience before you actually start working. And if there are no questions, thank you. Okay, yeah, we have a next. So I don't know if we still have our whatever with our stuff with us. I talked about in your next session, you can go to your next session. I think I asked that, do we know, have you heard of Analytics Africa? Tosin mentioned it. So if you still have the app, the Menti on your phone, you can move to the next one. Let's have an idea of the people that have heard of Analytics Africa. However, at the beginning of the session, Tosin talked about what Analytics Africa does and all that. But however, probably at this moment, I can hand over to Tosin. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you for listening to me. I appreciate. I hope I didn't take much of our time. So thank you for listening to me. So Tosin, over to you. Maybe at this time you can tell us what's Analytics Africa, what we do.
Thank you very much, Biola. Super happy, and thank you for the wonderful presentation. We appreciate your efforts, and your presentation was very insightful. And to those who are joining us for the first time, I'm Tosin Shobukola. I'm the convener of Analytics Africa. We are a non-profit. Organization who helps people to understand how to use analytics, especially for working professionals. But again, we're not just for only working professionals. We are there for business owners, working professionals, students, and upcoming people who want to learn about data analytics. As we very well know, all that we do in the world is data related. Even time is data. What time is it? 5 o'clock, 5:45, 5:20. It's data. How old are you? That's data. Or how much is it? It's data. Because if you go today and you call it $10 and you go there tomorrow and it's $15, that changes the scenario for you. So even price, everything is data. So we all try to learn and we all try to appreciate what we are doing to be able to help people to grow. And an extension of data is AI, because without data, there's no AI. So we focus on data and AI. For those of you who are interested in connecting with Abiola, or connecting with our team, you can, I'm going to drop the addresses in the email, in the chat window. So you can send a message if you're interested. We will connect with you and let what our plan would be. So I will let you know what to do. So I'm going to drop it in the chat window for right now. Yes, please, my spelling will be wrong, just bear with me because I'm doing two things at the same time. Okay, yeah, so that's it in a nutshell. At the end of it, we've spent about almost 2 hours, about 90 minutes. and we want you to enjoy your Friday. If you have any questions about Analytics Africa, send a mail to any of those 2 email boxes. We will receive them and we will be able to respond to you there. And of course, if you have any challenges, thank you, Abiola, for posting them there. If you also want to learn more, we have a couple of courses that we are launching soon. There will be something on data privacy. We have one on not data appreciation, data policy. I can't remember. It's a fairly old course, but we are relaunching it. Data literacy. We have a data literacy program that we are launching very soon. It's free, so you'll be able to register for it and be able to learn about data literacy. So very soon we'll be doing a data privacy program and a couple of other things in the future. Thank you very much for coming tonight. I believe it has been helpful. Before we go, can we just unmute ourselves and say 1 or 2 things about the session, and then we'll call it an evening. If you feel like talking, you can talk. If you want to type, give us feedback about the session, drop your comments in the chat window, or if you want to unmute yourself, please feel free to unmute yourself for the next few minutes, and we'll call it an evening. Any questions or feedback you want to give, or recommendations or suggestions, please feel free for the next 2 minutes.
Okay, I'll call names. Michael, do you have anything to say?
No. Good to see you here.
All right, thank you.
Okay, someone is typing.
Hello?
Yes, please. I see
Yeah,
SA.
thank you. Yes, thank you. My name is Shegun. As a matter of fact, I joined the section very late. At least for the few time I listened carefully with Abiola and your last statement. I think this is well applauded. But I also want to ask, how soon, how often do you have section like this? Is this just a one-off, or is something that will keep coming up with, different topics that we have people join and all of that? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. So we at Analytics Africa meet typically once a month. Now, when I say typically once a month, it does not mean we meet. We try to meet once a month. Sometimes we cannot just do it for many reasons, but we strive to meet 12 or 12. You understand? So, like, for example, now this is our first experience this year. So we have already lost 4 out of 12. So we hope that we can do something for the remaining 8 months of the year. If you go to our website, which is analyticsafrica.org, you will see our previous sessions. I think only 1 or 2 sessions are not there, but I'm typing, that's why I'm a bit slow. So I'll drop the URL in the link there. If you go to our website, you see the previous events that we've had and hosted, and that's what we do. Again, we try to come together to learn. So we are focused on learning and networking. We are focused on learning and networking rather than selling courses and making somebody rich. I mean, we still had that conversation today between myself and Abiola just before the course, and I said, no, we like to help people to learn and help people to grow. So I've answered your question with many sentences. I'll answer them with words. Yes, we meet regularly.
Thank you very much, Tosin.
Yes, we have multiple topics that we discuss.
Thank you so much, Tosin. Just a few statements regarding the learning, because I know, Abiola, will the training and the learning, is it going to encompass both data analytics and Abiola areas of expertise?
Yes, so Abiola is a cybersecurity and GRC person, right? So
yes,
whatever she's going to teach, so there are two verticals. There are 2 verticals. Abiola is a cybersecurity and GRC person. I know she's launching her GRC and cybersecurity program on one side. So that's vertical one. If she's launching a program with Analytics Africa, if Analytics, for now, it would be something related to data security, data privacy, AI governance, AI privacy, or low code, no code, which is also data analytics related, if she's going to launch it on the Analytics Africa platform. So there are two verticals. There is the security, privacy, governance, cybersecurity areas of data, which she's working with us on, one pipeline. And then there's also her personal mentorship program on cybersecurity, risk and compliance, and all the things that whatever she wants to do, also on another pipeline. So there are two verticals. And if Abiola is your hero, you will see her on both verticals.
I love that statement. Anyway, thank you very much.
And also, thank you. My community manager just dropped a line for us. We have a WhatsApp channel. Please join our WhatsApp channel. It helps us because in the process of sending emails going into promo box, going to spam, if you are on our WhatsApp channel, you will be able to get more info. Thank you very much, Toby. So please, the link is there. We'll also send that link to you also. So please join our WhatsApp channel. WhatsApp channel is different from WhatsApp community. On the channel, we don't know who is there. We don't have your details per se. So yeah, nobody is going to add you to a Bitcoin group or to a scam group. It's it's just more like a broadcast group. So we don't see you, you see us. The only thing we get is your reactions and everything. And if we want any data from you, we will tell you where to go and put the data. So please encourage us by joining our WhatsApp channel. We're also going to drop our Instagram and LinkedIn channels and Twitter so that you can just follow us bumper to bumper. Okay, it was meant to be 2 minutes. Any other person with a question or comment before we call it an evening?
Yeah, so apologies about...
This is Michael speaking.
Oh, Michael, thanks. You can go on.
Yeah, okay, just want to thank you, Biola, for this session. It was very insightful. So Biola and I have worked together for the last maybe 3 years. We've fought many times. And she wants to audit me and I don't want to be audited. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome, Michael. And apologies for, at the beginning of the meeting where you couldn't hear me. But Tosin, we'll be uploading this on YouTube, are we?
Yes, we will upload it on YouTube. And when we upload it, it will be on the website primarily, more on the website than YouTube.
On the website. Okay.
Yeah, so once we set it up, we will let you know. And
Right.
then you can take it up from there.
Yes. So you'll have access to the video on the website. So I think the link will be shared with everybody.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening. Enjoy the rest of the month and see you in May. Bye for now.
Thanks, Tosin. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. Bye. Enjoy your weekend, everyone. Bye.
Bye.